Okay, today we're going to talk about the synthesis. I have this cheesy metaphor here that my old partner for AP English came up with. It was Ann Pagani. I thought it was really creative. It's called basically when you're doing the synthesis, it's like taking eggs and making an omelet. You have multiple sources, multiple ingredients, and you're putting them together into one cohesive essay. Which is essentially an argument, which makes 2 of the 3 FRQs an argument. Now, last time I did a video, you may recall there was a cameo appearance from my cat. So I had a lot of people ask me, oh, can you show us a picture of your cat? Here's my cat who decided to sabotage my acing the AP English Lang video last time. So his name is Mycroft. The synthesis is basically the combination of ideas to form an argument. Consider this basically a research paper in which the College Board has given you all the research. Thank you, College Board. You want to keep your claim the main thing in the synthesis essay. Let me delete out of this video screen of my ugly mug once again. There have been many controversial topics in the last few years. Eminent domain, the legalities of it, possibly getting rid of the penny, more obscure topics like the locavore movement, a broader topic like the government censoring of the internet, or also recently, most important factors that an agency should consider when deciding whether to establish a wind farm. So now, don't worry, if some of these you're like, I have no idea what that, I have no idea what these mean. Like what's eminent domain? Who are locavores? Don't worry, because again, there's 6 or 7 documents, and you get to read through them all, and by the time you finish them, you're like, okay, I got it. And then you can pick a side or talk about the factors. There are 2 types of synthesis questions. One is persuasive, and this one you're basically asked to take a position on an argument. In years past, they have occasionally used the phrasing defend, challenge, qualify. If you defend, you're agreeing with the argument. If you're challenging, then obviously you're disagreeing, and if you're qualifying, then you're taking what I call a Rogerian argument. And if you remember from the argument slideshow, that's basically to solve a problem by compromise. The second type is analyze and or evaluate. And in this one, you're not necessarily taking a position. You're not taking a position like left or right, okay? You're evaluating all of the issues related to that controversy and then prioritizing what are the most important issues, okay? So I'll give you an example. In the second type, again, you're not saying, okay, we should get rid of the penny, or we have to keep the penny. I mean, look, there's Lincoln, look what he did for our country. You're just in this type of prompt, your counters and concessions will address opposing considerations. So some will say, oh, we need to consider the tradition of the penny and what it represents symbolically, okay? And others will say, well, tradition's fine, but we need to be practical and consider the cost, because it costs more money to make the penny than the penny's worth. So that's what you're doing with the second type of synthesis, okay? My overall advice, okay, it's kind of a potential trap, because the most common mistake kids will make is they'll just summarize the sources, okay? You want to use the sources or bend the sources to develop your argument. You don't need to over quote or overstate the sources or the articles. The AP reader is going to be quite familiar with them. Again, whoever grades your synthesis, that's all they're going to do. That's all they're doing is grading the synthesis. They're not grading all 3 of your FRQs. They're only going to, for the summer, they're just grading synthesis, one after another. Okay, so they know the sources, and they'll know them inside out. I like to tell my students to put quotation marks around the sources and then cite the article's title or the author. Okay, it's a little more sophisticated. You can just do source A, source B, source C, and it'll say that in the directions, but I've been to a few workshops and they say, it's just a little more sophisticated if you can put the author's name. Okay. Organization. You want to start with the hook. This is like 8th grade English again, okay? Writing an essay. You still want to hook the reader, especially if you're going for the 6, and then transition to your claim and make the thesis statement strong and emphatic. Put it at the end of the first paragraph. And then I still think you can follow the same template I gave you before, where you wrote the argument FRQ and you front-loaded concessions. Or the other way, you can thread them throughout the body. Okay, so that's personal preference, wherever you're most confident and comfortable. You can still write a 6 with both. Okay. Personal anecdote is okay, maybe as a hook or in the conclusion, but maybe if it's a local issue. Historical knowledge is great. So if you read a book about Lincoln during your AP US history class, and it was your outside independent reading book or whatever, and then it's talking about abolishing the penny, of course you can use that. Let's get rid of this again. Body paragraphs. Okay, think about the trap. Okay, think about this sort of metaphor of a bear trap. You don't want to step into the bear trap. Okay, so the trap here will be like, okay, I'll start with my body paragraph with a quote. No, again, this is like 8th grade English. Start with a topic sentence, aka a subclaim, and then spend significantly more time on your main point than on the other side. I like to say CNC, concede then crush. And you can still use that formula from the argument essay, although plus concession plus counterargument. You don't want to just dump quotes in. Again, that's falling into the trap of overquoting. You want to use the quote strategically and discuss the big picture, the broader implications of whatever the issue is, the local war movement. The local war movement, by the way, is just like eating locally produced foods. Again, on organization, this looks yummy. I'm craving an omelet now. You must use at least 3 of the sources. Okay, think of a 3-egg omelet. Conclusion. Yeah, it's nice to have one, even if it's just a 1-sentence, 1-liner, maybe 2-liner. Use pathos. You can always use the periodic parallel sentence we talked about in the syntax unit. More suggestions here. Here's a bear. We're avoiding the bear trap. Limit the first person. Use academic language. Incorporate quotes and evidence seamlessly. I have this poster in my room, which is great. So you want to use effective verbs. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have the poster here, but instead of saying shows, or emphasizes, like a lot of high school juniors do, say indicates, asserts, demonstrates, illustrates. By the way, a source never talks about. Okay, you could say Campbell talks about. You could say Harris talks about. You could say Mooney talks about. Do not say in conclusion. That is cliche. I talk a lot about AP equals answer the prompt. Here it's AA. Making an AA joke here, sorry. Answer the assignment. Okay, probably the last sentence or 2. Bend the sources to your argument and your position. The language of the prompt, or the language of the rubric, is crafting a nuanced argument by consistently identifying and exploring complexities or tensions across the sources. Where do the sources contradict themselves? Where are they consistent? And then how can you use that to support your argument, your subclaims? Again, I went to a few workshops and they talked about using the author's name if you can. Okay. not mandatory, just a little bit more sophisticated. And to continue my cheesy metaphor of the omelet, you're looking for nuggets that will make your your essay, awesome. Okay. What I mean is you don't have to overquote. You don't have to quote the whole paragraph or even an entire sentence. You take the phrase, the idea, or part of the quote and use that nugget as support for your argument. This will help you avoid the trap. So again, there's 6 or 7 sources. It's a lot of paragraphs. Okay, you don't have to even quote an entire sentence. You could just quote like half of it and then do a lead-in and then use that to support your subclaim. Okay. And yes, you can bring in outside information just like the argument, as I mentioned with the Lincoln example. So the more you know about the world, I don't care where you get your news, whether it's CNN or Fox or NPR, okay, or MSNBC, you can tie that in. That's going to help you give a broader context. That's part of the rubric. Chart or graphic, a couple things to say about this. There is going to be at least one chart or graphic, so it's a good idea to practice reading these. I know when I was a junior, I was sort of clueless on political cartoons. I'd be like, can you explain this to me? I don't know what it means. Okay. And then again, if you see a chart and you're like, I got nothing, just skip it. You don't have to use the charts. Okay. Here's an example from the wind farm prompt. And here's an example of a funny political cartoon. We just finished a presidential election. It's time for the last round, the final debate. I'll drink to that. Both sides are already beat up at this point and abusing the political ads and the endless campaigning. Here's another political cartoon. This one's about college debt. I have a daughter in college, so... Oh gosh, he got so excited about making his final student loan payment, his poor ticker couldn't handle it. So he's like 85 years old and he just finished paying off Boston University. That sounds about right. Okay, syllogism. Bears eat beets. Bears sometimes step into bear traps. You are not a bear. Do not step into the synthesis trap. Synthesis trap is over-quoting sources. Okay, according to Dwight, this is all part of the Dwight Schrute motif. Life is short. False. It's the longest thing you do. And then I'll include this later. There's a funny little video from YouTube from The Office. How many sources? I hope you remember. 1, 2, 3. You can quote all of the sources if you want. Okay, there's no extra credit for doing that, but the more you know about the argument and both sides of it, and the more you can shape the sources and bend them to your will and your position, the better off you'll be, whether you use 3 or 7. Your argument should be the focus. That's the main thing. Questions on how to make an omelet. Okay, so yeah, I like 2 or 3 eggs, mozzarella cheese, chunks of avocado, and you gotta have some protein, right? So chunks of bacon, not a whole piece of bacon. Again, not a whole paragraph of text that I'm gonna copy and paste from the source into my synthesis. Just little snidbits and chunks. That's gonna give it the flavor it needs. And then sprinkle it with lots of, I like sea salt, pepper. That's gonna help you get the 6 with sort of an artistic hook or conclusion at the end. I hope this is helpful.